She left me burning with fever to save her first love, so I finally stopped needing her. The moment my wife forgot I was sitting beside her, I finally remembered that I could live without her. I was burning with a fever in the passenger seat of Evelyn Shaw's car when her first love called from a beach 2 hours outside London. "Can you hear the waves?" Julian Cross asked brightly through the speakers. Evelyn's hands tightened around the steering wheel. "Julian, where are you?" "At the coast." "What are you doing there alone?" At first, I felt terrible, but after I reached the water, everything became peaceful. His voice softened. "It's dark, Evelyn. I'm a little frightened." The car slowed. I leaned my head against the cold window and closed my eyes. My temperature had reached 39 degrees Celsius during a friend's birthday gathering at a remote country estate. I could barely stand, so we had left early to drive to the hospital. At least, that had been the plan. Julian continued talking. "The sand feels solid beneath my feet. The sea's freezing, though. I'm cold." Evelyn's voice became gentle in a way I had not heard directed at me in years. "Stay where you are. I'll come and get you." She glanced at her phone, opened the location Julian had shared and began calculating a new route. The hospital disappeared from the screen. A beach appeared in its place. Only when I placed my hand over the navigation display did Evelyn seem to remember that I was still in the car. She looked at me. For half a second, guilt crossed her face. Then irritation replaced it. "Adrian, what are you doing? I need to go to the hospital." "I know, you're driving in the opposite direction. Julian's situation is urgent. So is mine. You have a fever, and I can barely remain conscious." She looked toward the road. "Julian is emotionally unstable. He shouldn't be standing beside the sea alone." The responsible response would have been to contact emergency services near his location. Evelyn was a clinical psychologist. She knew that better than anyone. But she did not call emergency services. She wanted to be the person who reached him. I removed my hand from the navigation screen. "Let me out." She stared at me. "What? Pull over." "Adrian, don't behave like this." "I'm not behaving like anything. I need medical treatment, and you need to rescue Julian." "That isn't fair." "No." I gave a faint laugh. "It really isn't." Evelyn's expression hardened. "You're not a child. You can order a car or call an ambulance." There it was. The lesson she had taught me. Throughout 6 years of marriage, if I was sick, I could call a doctor. If my car broke down, I could contact roadside assistance. If my mother hurt me, I could establish my own boundaries. If I felt lonely, I could learn to enjoy my own company. Evelyn had trained me to solve every difficulty without troubling her. Julian, however, deserved the entire world's concern. "I understand," I said. Her shoulders relaxed, apparently believing I had surrendered again. "You do?" "Yes." I opened the door after she stopped beside an empty rural road. "Go to him, Adrian. I'll take care of myself." I stepped out. The cold air struck my feverish body so violently that my knees almost failed. Evelyn remained beside the road for several seconds. Perhaps she expected me to apologize. Perhaps she expected me to return to the car and quietly accept the detour. Then Julian's voice came through her phone again. "Evelyn." Her car turned around and vanished into the darkness. She did not look back. That was the night I stopped needing my wife. Julian Cross had been Evelyn's first love at university. She once ate an entire box of oranges despite being allergic to them because Julian had joked that he admired women who were adventurous with food. She spent the following night receiving medical treatment. Julian visited for 20 minutes, brought supermarket flowers and left to meet another woman. Years later, he told Evelyn that he had chosen someone more suitable. That decision damaged her confidence so deeply that she spent years rebuilding it. By the time I met her, she seemed composed, accomplished, and almost impossible to intimidate. I never believed I'd save Evelyn from her first heartbreak. She had already survived it herself. In my life, she was the rescuer. We first met at a matchmaking event when I was 20. Neither of us had attended with serious intentions. I was still at university, uncertain about my future and uncomfortable around strangers. Evelyn was several years older, already completing advanced clinical training and far too elegant for the hotel conference room where the event was held. When she sat across from me, I stared longer than was polite. "Is something wrong?" she asked. "No." "Then why are you looking at me like that?" I didn't realize matchmaking events had applicants of this quality. For 1 second, she looked offended. Then she laughed. We both admitted that we had only attended because friends had pressured us. We exchanged numbers and left without expecting to Meet again. 3 months later, I called her. Dr. Shaw, may I ask you something strange? You may. What does it mean if I think a mosquito is speaking to me? There was a pause. It means you need a proper assessment. I was hoping you'd say it was an unusually intelligent mosquito. I'm afraid not. My childhood had not prepared me for adulthood. My father left early. My mother considered affection an unnecessary luxury. When I struggled at school, she insulted me instead of helping. When I became frightened or overwhelmed, she told me I was no longer a child and should solve it myself. Years of criticism, isolation, and stress eventually affected my mental health. Evelyn helped me find appropriate treatment. She sat beside me during assessments, explained medication without making me feel ashamed, reminded me that an illness was not a moral failure. Nothing about this makes you weak, she told me. You're unwell, we treat it, and you recover. For almost a year, she was the safest person in my life. After I stabilized, we stopped seeing each other professionally. Months later, I asked her to dinner. Then I asked again, and again. It took 6 months before she agreed to date me. I loved her with the gratitude of someone who believed he had been pulled from deep water. When she corrected me, I listened. When she said I was immature, I tried to grow. When she told me my reactions were unhealthy, I questioned myself before questioning her. Evelyn had helped me once. Over time, I began believing that meant she was always right. We married. For the first few years, I thought I was extraordinarily fortunate. Then Julian returned, the woman he had chosen over. Evelyn had betrayed him and damaged his finances. He came back anxious, depressed, and struggling to function. By coincidence or perhaps design, he became a patient at the clinic where Evelyn worked. She assured me that the past was irrelevant. He's only a patient. Are you certain treating him is appropriate? I'm a professional. Wouldn't another clinician be better? Adrian, I know how to manage boundaries. At first, she did. Then Julian's money ran out. Evelyn continued seeing him without payment. He began calling outside scheduled hours. She answered. He appeared at our home claiming he could not breathe. She stayed beside him until sunrise. When he damaged his car, she left a dinner with my family to help him. When he said he had no one else, Evelyn behaved as if that made her personally responsible for his survival. One night, I overheard her comforting him. You deserve to be cared for by the entire world, she said. I stood outside the room, holding 2 cups of tea. Years earlier, when I had called her because my car failed on a motorway, she had sighed. Contact roadside assistance. Adrian, this is basic adult problem solving. When I was ill, she told me to call a doctor. When Julian felt lonely, she became his doctor, driver, advocate, and closest friend. I noticed the difference. I simply did not yet believe I was permitted to name it. No car accepted my booking on the remote road. After 10 minutes, I could no longer remain standing. I sat on the wet ground and considered calling an ambulance. Headlights appeared through the darkness. A vehicle stopped sharply beside me. The driver's door opened. Adrian. Claire Morgan hurried toward me. She was Evelyn's closest friend from university and the owner of a small hospitality and investment company. Claire always appeared reserved in public. Up close, she was warmer than people expected. She crouched beside me and placed a hand against my forehead. You're burning. Where is Evelyn? I did not want to humiliate my wife. Even then, some instinct remained determined to protect her reputation. Could you take me to a hospital? Claire's expression changed. Where is she? I can't stand much longer. That was enough. Claire helped me into her car. The moment I reached the seat, the world began fading. Before I lost consciousness, I heard Claire calling Evelyn. I don't care what Julian threatened to do. You call local emergency services and trained responders. You do not abandon your sick husband beside a rural road. Evelyn replied loudly enough for me to hear fragments. You don't understand his condition. I understand Adrian's temperature is almost 40. Claire, if Julian were in immediate danger, any one of us could have contacted help. Adrian had only you in the car. I smiled weakly. Being defended felt unfamiliar. Then everything went dark. When I woke, it was after midnight. A private nurse sat near the hospital bed. My phone contained no missed calls or messages from Evelyn. Claire had sent one. I had to leave for work. I arranged for someone to stay with you. Message me when you wake up. I replied, awake. I'm all right, thank you. After a moment, I added, let me buy you dinner sometime. The following morning, after receiving treatment and medical instructions, I left the hospital. I did not return home immediately. I visited a lawyer. The associate placed divorce documents on the desk. You may file jointly, or we can begin a contested process if your wife refuses. I don't think a fight will be necessary. Are you certain? No. I smiled, but for the first time, I'm prepared. For one, the lawyer explained the mandatory review period required before the divorce could be finalized in our jurisdiction. 30 days. 30 days for either person to withdraw. I signed my portion. Then I returned to the house. Evelyn was not there. Judging by the untouched rooms, she had not returned overnight. I opened the wardrobe and removed the last few items that belonged to me. There were only 3 pairs of shoes, a few shirts, 2 winter coats. Most of my belongings were already gone. I had begun moving them 2 months earlier. My computer, financial documents, books, work files, art from university, personal photographs, 1 box at a time. I had removed myself from our home. Evelyn had not noticed. I discarded what remained unnecessary and packed the rest into 1 suitcase. At 7 that evening, she finally returned. Her face was tired. When she saw the suitcase, she frowned. Are you traveling for work? No. Then what is that? I'm moving out. Her eyes narrowed. What are you talking about? I held out the papers. We should divorce. Evelyn stared at me. Then she pushed the documents away. Don't start. I'm not starting anything. I was awake all night dealing with a crisis. I'm exhausted. So was I. This is exactly what I mean. You make everything emotional. I kept my voice level. Read the agreement. If you disagree with anything, we can revise it. She laughed without humor. Are you threatening me? No. Leaving the house, presenting divorce papers and refusing to discuss your feelings is manipulative. I have discussed my feelings for 2 years. You complained. I begged you to establish boundaries with Julian. He was a patient. You abandoned me during a medical emergency for him because his situation was more dangerous. You didn't know that. I assessed the risk over a telephone call. Her face hardened. You don't understand clinical responsibility. I understand you are no longer his clinician. Silence entered the room. Evelyn had continued calling Julian a patient even after their official treatment arrangement should have ended. Adrian, she said slowly, you are acting like a child. I had heard those words too many times. At first, they made me ashamed. Later, angry. That evening, they made me feel nothing. I offered the papers again. If you believe this is a childish threat, sign them. Her pride reacted before her judgment. Fine. Without reading the agreement, Evelyn turned to the last page and signed. Then she threw the papers onto the table. Get out. I will. I picked them up. We meet at the civil office tomorrow at 9. Her expression shifted. She had expected me to apologize the moment she signed. Instead, I carried my suitcase through the door. I posted a photograph of the signed filing online, not to announce a celebration, to prevent Evelyn from pretending it had never happened. My mother called within seconds. I blocked her temporarily. My closest friend, Marcus, called next. Isn't it a little early to celebrate? I'm not celebrating. Then why post it? Because Evelyn thinks I'm having a tantrum. If other people know, she have to take the appointment seriously. Marcus became quiet. You've planned this. I bought a home last year. You what? I renovated it. You never told me. I told everyone. No one believed I would actually leave. The following morning, Evelyn stood outside the civil office. Julian stood beside her. He wore a concerned expression so carefully arranged that it might have been rehearsed. Adrian, he said, Evelyn told me you're divorcing because of what happened. I feel terrible. Do you? Yes. I never wanted to come between you. Then apologize. He blinked. What? You said you felt terrible. Apologize. Julian glanced at Evelyn. She frowned at me. Where are your manners? I almost laughed. Julian had accompanied my wife to our divorce appointment, held her wrist possessively and delivered a speech designed to make himself appear generous. Yet I was the person being lectured about manners. Mr. Cross, I said. Are we close friends? No. Then stop calling me by my first name. His face became pale. Evelyn stepped between us. He's trying to help. I did not ask him to attend. He was worried. So was I when you left me, beside a road. Her jaw tightened. You were being deliberately cruel. No, I'm being direct. We completed the filing. The clerk reminded us that the divorce would become final after the mandatory 30-day period, unless either party withdrew. Outside, Evelyn asked when I planned to collect the rest of my possessions. I already did. What do you mean? There is nothing of mine left in the house. She stared. She had not noticed the empty office, the cleared shelves, the missing clothes, the absence of half the books. During the second year of our marriage, Evelyn had requested separate bedrooms. Healthy couples need independent space, she said. I wanted to sleep beside my wife, but she presented distance as maturity, so I agreed. From that point forward, it became possible for me to disappear slowly without her seeing it. My mother appeared at my new home that afternoon. She had once opposed my relationship with Evelyn. Then she discovered that Evelyn came from a wealthy family and had an impressive career. Suddenly, she called my wife perfect. Evelyn wants to divorce you, she demanded. We both filed. What did you do to her? Why assume I did something? Because a woman like her doesn't leave without a reason. My mother paced around the room. You posted it publicly. Do you know how embarrassing this is for me? For you. People are asking questions. I can't eat. I can't sleep. I can't even enjoy meeting my friends. I'm sorry my divorce has affected your social calendar. She pointed at me. If you end this marriage, I won't recognize you as my son. Those words had controlled me when I was younger. Not anymore. That is your decision. She froze. You would abandon your mother. I am asking you to leave my home. I raised you. You regularly told me I was old enough to handle things alone. My voice remained calm. You were right. I can handle this alone. She began crying, then shouting, then claiming I was destroying her health. In the past, I would have panicked. That day, I contacted building security and asked them to escort her home safely. I did not threaten her. I did not argue. I simply refused to let her crisis become my command. After she left, I lay on the living room floor and stared at the ceiling. The apartment was quiet. For once, quiet did not mean abandonment. It meant peace. On the fourth day of the waiting period, Claire accepted my dinner invitation. She asked about my health. Then our conversation moved to work. When she learned I worked in public sector tax compliance, she looked surprised. I thought you were still doing basic bookkeeping. I passed the professional accountancy examinations 3 years ago. Evelyn said you failed. She assumed I would. I had told Evelyn I planned to take the examinations. Her response had been immediate. Don't waste time on something beyond your ability. I studied anyway. When I passed, I told her. She was responding to one of Julian's messages and said only, that's nice. When I accepted a new position, I informed her, again. She believed I was exaggerating. When I purchased the new apartment, I showed her the documents. She barely looked at them. In Evelyn's mind, I remained the uncertain 20-year-old patient who required her guidance. She had not noticed that I had become someone else. Claire shook her head. She was blind. No, she was certain. Certain of what? That I could never outgrow the version of me she understood. Outside the restaurant, my phone rang. Evelyn, I answered, because we still needed to coordinate the divorce. Where is the shampoo? She asked. The cabinet beneath the sink. I looked. Bottom shelf. Julian's voice came through behind her. Forget it. If you call Adrian about every small thing, he'll misunderstand. I smiled. There's another bottle in the guest bathroom. The robe is on the upper shelf. Enjoy your evening. Wait, Evelyn said quickly. Julian and I only went to dinner nearby. A server spilled soup on him, so he needed to clean up. You don't need to explain. I don't want you imagining something inappropriate. I missed a step leaving the restaurant. Claire caught my arm. Careful. The line became silent. Then Evelyn asked sharply, who are you with? We're divorcing. It no longer concerns you. Claire looked at me. I can explain if necessary. I ended the call. Do you believe I truly want the divorce? I asked. Claire studied me for a moment. Yes, thank you. Evelyn continued calling. Then she found my address through my mother. When Claire drove me home several nights later, Evelyn stepped from a parked car. She saw me leaving Claire's passenger seat and immediately pushed past her. So this is what you're doing. I moved between them. Don't touch her. Evelyn looked stunned. You're defending Claire against me. You pushed her. Julian approached from the second car. He placed a hand on Evelyn's arm. Adrian, don't create a scene. Even if you're angry, you shouldn't destroy their friendship. Claire looked at him coldly. What friendship? Julian's face tightened. He had always behaved as if every woman in Evelyn's life automatically welcomed him. Evelyn pointed at Claire. When did this begin? Nothing began, I said. You arrived in her passenger seat. Julian nodded solemnly. The passenger seat is usually where someone's partner sits. I looked directly at him. So you do understand that? His expression changed. For 2 years, Julian had occupied my wife's passenger seat. Evelyn had called it meaningless. Apparently, meanings changed depending on who benefited. I looked at her. What do you want? To talk? You had 6 years. You're being dramatic. Then why are you following me? Evelyn opened her mouth. I continued. How did you find my address? She looked away. You asked my mother. She was worried. You know exactly how she behaves. You once told me that managing her was my responsibility. You said I shouldn't bring every family problem to you. That is different. Yes. I glanced at Julian. Everything is different when it happens to him. My voice shook for the first time. You taught me that if I'm attacked, I call the police. If I'm ill, I call a doctor. If my car fails, I call a mechanic. If I feel lonely, I build an independent life. I looked into her eyes. But Julian deserves everyone's care. Adrian, you taught me how to stand alone against the world. I stepped back. Congratulations, Evelyn. I learned. We agreed to meet in a consultation office because she believed a professional environment would make our conversation more rational. Evelyn sat behind the desk where she had once helped me recover. For a moment, the sight of her there made me feel 20 again. Then she spoke. I admit that leaving you beside the road was wrong. That's a beginning. But Julian's condition appeared urgent, and mine did not. You had a fever. I lost consciousness. I didn't know that. Because you didn't check. She removed her glasses. I believed you could manage. That is always your answer. He had no one. He has family, friends, medical providers, emergency services. He trusts me. I trusted you. That silenced her. After a moment, she continued. I'll establish better boundaries with him. I'm not asking you to. Her expression sharpened. Then what do you want? For you not to withdraw the divorce filing? She stared as though I had struck her. Half a year ago, Julian damaged his car. I continued. You had worked late the previous night, but you immediately drove across the city to help him. He was panicking. 1 month ago, my car broke down. You were safe. You told me that calling roadside assistance was basic knowledge. We had argued the night before, so because we argued, I had to be punished. That isn't what happened. If I don't apologize quickly enough, you remove warmth, help, conversation, affection. You're twisting everything. No. I leaned forward. I'm finally naming it. Evelyn's face became cold. You were extremely dependent when we met. I taught you independence. You did. Then why resent me for it? Because independence was only required when I needed something from you. She said nothing. Julian can call at midnight. He can appear at our home. He can ruin dinners. He can sit in your car and use our bathroom. Every demand proves he's wounded. My voice lowered. When I needed you, it proved I was immature. Evelyn stood. I was trying to make you better. Better for whom? For yourself. No, you wanted someone who never inconvenienced you. I walked toward the door. The boldest thing I ever did was pursue you. My hand rested on the handle. The healthiest thing I will ever do is leave. For several days, Evelyn stopped contacting me. I traveled twice for work. When I returned, building security informed me that my mother had attempted to enter 5 times. Julian also found my number. His message read, "You have turned Evelyn and Claire against each other. Are you satisfied now?" I ignored him. Instead, I called Claire. If Evelyn asks, I can explain that nothing happened between us. Claire answered with a question. Do you need me to? No. Then neither do I. I smiled. Our conversations felt easy, not because Claire agreed with everything I said, because she did not assume that disagreement made me defective. She later offered me temporary accounting work at one of her company's international branches. The previous financial manager resigned. Unexpectedly, she explained, I need someone reliable while I recruit a replacement. You trust me with your accounts. I checked your professional record, and Evelyn really was blind. I accepted. The work was challenging but manageable. For the first time in years, someone evaluated me based on what I could do instead of who I had once been. On the 12th day of the divorce waiting period, Evelyn appeared outside my office. She looked exhausted. You changed careers without telling me. I told you. No, you didn't. I told you before the examination. You said you were thinking about it. I told you when I passed. You never passed. I stared at her. I have the certificate. Her expression faltered. I informed you when I changed jobs. You said something about an interview. I showed you the contract. Silence. I told you when I purchased the apartment. I began renovating it last year. I started moving my belongings 2 months ago. Evelyn shook her head. That isn't possible. It happened in front of you. Then why didn't I know? That is the question you should ask yourself. She looked frightened now. Not because I had become someone extraordinary. Because she finally realized that her certainty about me had been false. You weren't like this before, she whispered. No. I smiled bitterly. Thanks to you. Evelyn relaxed slightly, mistaking the words for gratitude. I continued. My mother did not teach me how to navigate life. I learned late. When we first met, every time I misunderstood something, you shook your head and asked how I could possibly not know. I was helping. I believed you. I sat across from her. You told me mature people did not complain, that intelligent people regulated every negative feeling, that good partners did not speak badly of anyone, ask for too much reassurance, or disturb the other person's peace. Those are healthy principles, not when only one partner must follow them. Her face lost color. You treated every emotion I expressed as evidence of illness. Every objection became insecurity. Every boundary became jealousy. That isn't true. You are a psychologist. Think carefully. I held her gaze. If a client told you that their partner used clinical language to make them doubt every reaction, what would you call it? Evelyn's lips parted. No answer came. There were years when I hated myself, I said. There were periods when my thoughts became dangerously dark. I sought help because I was afraid of where that despair might lead. Her eyes filled with tears. Why didn't you tell me? I did. No. I told you I felt broken. You said you were tired. I said I sometimes wished I could disappear. Evelyn covered her mouth. You told me not to be dramatic. The room became silent. You once helped me rebuild, I said. Later, piece by piece, you dismantled my confidence again. I only wanted you to become stronger. I became stronger. I stood strong enough to leave you. On the 18th day, Evelyn arrived beneath my apartment holding a box of oranges. She was severely allergic to them. From my balcony, I watched her call me. I was wrong, she said. Her voice trembled. I'll end every private connection with Julian. I'll leave the clinic if necessary. Tell me what I must do. There is nothing to do. I'll prove that I love you. She opened the box. I understood immediately. Evelyn, stop. For the first time in days, urgency entered my voice. Hope appeared on her face. If I endure what I once endured for Julian, you'll understand that you matter more. That proves nothing. She reached toward the fruit. I contacted building security and emergency medical services. This is dangerous, I told her. It is not romantic, and it will not change my decision. Security arrived before she could continue. Even limited exposure had already triggered a reaction, and medical staff treated her promptly. I did not go downstairs. I watched from the window until the ambulance left. The disappointment in her eyes was painful, but rewarding dangerous behavior with reconciliation would not have been compassion. It would have taught her that hurting herself could control me. Julian confronted me the following morning. His jealousy was impossible to hide. She was willing to risk everything for you. Obviously, she still loves you. Perhaps. Then why won't you take her back? I studied him. I have always disliked you. His expression darkened, but I never prevented you from contacting her. Why? Because your return saved me. He looked confused. When I saw how Evelyn looked at you, I finally realized she was ordinary. I smiled faintly. Not a perfect doctor. Not the person who always knew better. Just a human being capable of bias, desire, and hypocrisy. I stepped closer. You did not steal a goddess from me, Julian. You revealed that I had built one in my imagination. My mother arrived next. Evelyn nearly died proving herself. What more do you want? I want the divorce. You're pretending not to care. You once hated her. That was before I understood her family. Exactly. My mother's face tightened. I continued. Evelyn wanted me to limit contact with you because she believed you manipulated me. Now you want me to remain with her because her status benefits you. How can you speak to your mother this way? Calmly, you're still holding grudges. No, I'm establishing distance. I continued sending her financial support because I had chosen to do so, but I stopped confusing duty with surrender. Love did not require giving another person unlimited access to my decisions. Claire was the third person to visit. I expected another message about Evelyn. Instead, she held up to airline tickets. I need to inspect the branch accounts personally. You're coming. We traveled to Prague, where her company had invested in a struggling cocktail bar inside an old stone district. The business was beautiful and financially disastrous. You voted for this project, I asked. Claire sighed. I listened to charming people instead of reading the numbers carefully. So it's losing money. Terribly. At least you admit it. I also learned to make cocktails. That evening, she stood behind the nearly empty bar and rolled up her sleeves. Two tourists approached and requested drinks. Claire smiled politely and placed a glass in front of me. Sorry, tonight, I'm serving only him. For several hours, she became my private bartender. The music was quiet. Cool air entered through an open window. For the first time since the separation began, I felt uncomplicated happiness. Claire rested her elbows on the bar. Are you having fun? Yes, good. She did not ask whether I loved Evelyn, did not tell me I should forgive, did not use my pain as an opportunity to move closer. She simply gave me one peaceful evening that mattered more than any dramatic promise. Evelyn agreed not to withdraw the divorce filing, on one condition. She wanted me to visit her once after she left the hospital. I accepted because I wanted the process completed without further delay. When I entered the room, she smiled weakly. So you haven't blocked me because you were afraid I might stop the divorce? Yes. You were willing to speak with me only to keep me cooperative? Yes. Her smile disappeared. Do you hate me? I did. The answer surprised her. I hated seeing you. I hated remembering that I loved you. I hated the version of myself that accepted everything. And now I'm tired of carrying it. She looked toward the window. Does that mean you forgive me? No. Evelyn's eyes closed. I sat beside the bed. If I could return to being 20, I would still accept the help you gave me. She looked at me. At that age, I needed someone patient, structured, and reassuring. It did not necessarily have to be you, but I needed those qualities. That sounds cruel. It isn't. I spoke honestly. You helped me survive a terrible period. That remains true. Her tears began falling. So does everything that happened afterward. Could you have been happier with someone else? Not then. I considered the question. I was too dependent and too wounded. I might have attached myself to anyone who made me feel safe. Evelyn looked devastated. But you loved me. Yes, I loved you. Perhaps you don't believe me. I believe you loved being needed. She looked away. I don't hate you anymore, I said. Not because you deserve automatic forgiveness, but because I refuse to let the past occupy my future. Then what do you want? To leave? For once, Evelyn listened. She did not withdraw the filing. At the end of 30 days, our divorce became final. Outside the office, she asked, could we ever become friends? I laughed softly. You're the psychologist. What do you think? Her face tightened. I repeated something she had once told me during treatment. The past cannot be changed. The future remains open. Growth is painful, but we keep moving. I looked at her for the final time. Don't turn around, Evelyn. Then I walked away. 4 months later, Claire informed me that the clinic had opened an internal investigation. Evelyn had filed a professional complaint against Julian, claiming he had deliberately exploited their past attachments while receiving psychological care. The complaint also exposed Evelyn's own blurred boundaries, private meetings, unrecorded sessions, inappropriate personal involvement, disclosure of confidential details during their public conflict. Julian denied wrongdoing. The available evidence did not support every accusation Evelyn made. However, the review concluded that her handling of the relationship had violated professional standards. She lost her position. Julian's reputation also suffered when messages showed that he had encouraged her attention while mocking my marriage privately. They blamed each other. The emotional bond Evelyn once described as a professional obligation collapsed beneath public resentment. Claire attempted to hide the news from me. I already know, I said. She became quiet. Are you wondering why I stayed so long even after I understood? No. I was trying to escape, I explained. But first I had to unlock the chains inside my own mind. I looked at my hands. I was too afraid to find the key, so for a while I kept hurting myself emotionally by remaining. Claire touched my shoulder. You still escaped. That took longer than it should have. It took as long as it took. Her answer contained no judgment, only recognition. I continued working with Claire for a year while she found a permanent financial manager. Once each month, we traveled to the Prague branch. She made drinks. I reviewed accounts. In return for her generous consulting fees, I paid for dinners she pretended not to enjoy as much as she did. Somewhere between spreadsheets, delayed flights, and quiet evenings at the bar, we became close friends. Marcus eventually asked the obvious question. Are you and Claire together? No. Do you like her? I became unexpectedly uncomfortable. I haven't thought about it. That means yes. It means I haven't thought about it. Marcus smiled smugly. Try not to make decisions on your own. Your record is terrible. He was not entirely wrong. Evelyn attempted to start a private consulting business after losing her position, but it struggled. Julian disappeared from her life. When friends asked whether her difficulties made me happy, I answered honestly, yes, not because I wanted her destroyed, because consequences confirmed that I had not imagined what happened. Over time, even that satisfaction faded. Evelyn's life belonged to her. Mine no longer revolved around it. I maintained limited contact with my mother. I helped with necessary expenses, but refused repeated demands for access or obedience. She called me selfish. I listened, ended the conversation politely and continued my day. Love and resentment both returned to ordinary proportions. Neither controlled me. My birthday came near the end of the year. I did not expect much. I had never enjoyed large celebrations, and my circle of friends was small. Claire invited me to dinner at the Old Prog Bar. When I arrived, the closed sign hung on the door. Inside, one table stood beneath warm lights. Every dish was something I liked, not what Evelyn had once decided I should like, not what was healthiest, most sophisticated, or convenient. Food I had mentioned casually during the previous year. Claire had remembered. She placed a wrapped gift beside me. Happy birthday. I opened it. Inside was a fountain pen engraved with the dates I passed my professional examinations. I stared at it. How did you know this date? I read the certificate. You actually read things people show you. I have many unusual talents. I laughed. Then I placed a small box in front of her. Claire raised an eyebrow. My birthday is months away. It isn't a birthday gift. She opened it. Inside was a key to the small studio space beside my apartment. Claire looked at me. I'm not moving in. I didn't ask you to. Good. I'm converting it into an office and art room. Congratulations. I thought you might help me choose the furniture. Suspicion entered her expression. Adrian, I took a breath. I would also like you to become my girlfriend. Claire stared, then she smiled. All right, I blinked. That easily. Would you prefer I manufacture an obstacle? No. Should I pretend to be uncertain for 3 months? Please don't. Then yes. Marcus, who had apparently been listening from behind the bar, appeared with both hands raised. That's it. No pursuit. No grand speech. Claire pointed toward the door. You were told not to listen. I'm protecting Adrian. From what? Efficient romance. I laughed. Adult love did not need to burn through every boundary to prove it was real. Claire and I did not promise that we would never disappoint each other. We promised to speak before disappointment became contempt. We did not demand constant sacrifice. We made room. We did not call dependence devotion or cruelty honesty. Our relationship felt natural, not because it required no effort, because the effort moved in both directions. Evelyn once taught me how to take care of myself. At first, she meant it as wisdom. Later, she used it as permission to ignore me. She taught me to manage illness alone, solve problems alone, confront family alone, regulate fear alone. Then she was shocked when I discovered that I could also build a future without her. The night she abandoned me with a fever, I thought, Julian had taken something from me. He had not. He gave me the final evidence I needed. Evelyn did not love him because he was weaker than I was. She did not neglect me because I required less. She simply valued his needs more. 4 years. I believed that becoming easier to love would make her choose me. So I asked for less, spoke less, expected less. Eventually, I became so undemanding that she forgot I existed. But the solution was never to make myself smaller. It was to leave the person who benefited from my disappearance. When Julian stood at the edge of the sea, Evelyn believed he deserved the attention of the entire world. When I sat beside her with a dangerous fever, she believed I should take care of myself. In the end, we both received what she believed we needed. Julian received her attention, and I learned to live without it. By the time she finally turned back, I no longer needed her to choose me. I had already chosen myself. What would you have done in Adrian's position? Would you have forgiven Evelyn after she admitted her mistakes, or completed the divorce the moment she abandoned you while you were sick? Share your opinion in the comments. And if you enjoy emotional stories about betrayal, regret, manipulation, self-respect and choosing yourself before it is too late, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next story. This story is entirely fictional and created for entertainment purposes. It does not encourage harassment, retaliation, dangerous displays of affection, or refusing necessary medical and mental health care. Threats of self-harm and severe allergic reactions should always be treated as emergencies and handled by qualified professionals or local emergency services.